The answer to this question will define our common future, because we are losing freedom in the world. Half the population last year went to elections, but 80% of people in the globe live in non-free or partially free societies. This means that the people who have a real right to vote for whom they want to vote, a real right to say what they want to say, a real right to love whom their heart tells them to love, and a real right to freely choose what God they want to pray, these people are minority. And the problem is not just in fact that in authoritarian countries, the space for freedom is shrinking to the size of the prison cell. The problem is that even in well-developed democracies, people start to put into questions the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I know that in this moment, many people worldwide are fighting for their freedom and their human dignity. And very often, this fight may seem have no sense because they face with such enormous opposing power. But the total history of humankind convincingly proved when you have no other instruments, you always have your own words and your own position. Eventually, it's not so little. We are not hostages of circumstances. We are participants of this historical process. And dignity provides us a courage to fight even in unbearable conditions.
Thank you so much, Alexandra, and I hope you're online. We appreciate your message. And thank you as well, Ala, Kalekadan, and Tutu, as well as the staff from Civic who support the protest lab. It's very, very important work. So we now move on to an artistic performance. Someone from Civic has asked me this morning, where is your dress? Yeah, Mandiba will be sending the bill. Where's my dress? Okay, so we have an artistic performance. We have a Thai hip-hop rap artist. His real name is Tanayus Na Ayutaya. His stage name is called 11 Finger. He's a hip-hop or rap artist from Klong Toei slum area of Bangkok. His music challenges stereotypes and confronts inequality and marginalization. He uses raw, direct rap style, which is a less polished pop rap. It's more street-oriented and more reflective of his background. His stage name reportedly stems from him having 11 fingers. That is an extra thumb or digit, making his alias a literal reference. So put it together for 11 Finger.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Everyone, please make some noise. Let's go. Everyone, please say, make love, not wrong for me, for freedom, okay? Put your hands up, put your hands up, put your hands up, put your hands up! Yeah! Okay! One! Yeah, make love not wrong, make love not wrong, make love not wrong! Make love not wrong, say! Make love not wrong! Yeah! Make love not wrong, yeah! Make love not wrong, yeah! Make love not wrong, yeah. 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 Oh, make love not wrong, yeah. Oh, make love not wrong, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I came from BBK. It's counted the biggest slum. 2 years and stay in the prison. It's just go out. Protest, talk about the government. Let's go. Yeah. Okay, one, okay. Yeah. Whoa, yeah. โอเค yeah oneพบกูมากับสลัมที่ความเป็นจริงแล้วมึงคงไม่ต้องฟังกูไม่สนใจมึงจะจำหรือไม่จำโชว์ที่กระจอกมึงก็เดินเข้ามาฟังมีแต่เพลงมึงก็พวกกระจอกแล้วมาฟังที่กูโฟล์ดิแล้วกูแม่งกูโฟล์แล้วกูคิดโชว์ดิพวกกระจอกมึงลองมาโฟล์ดิโทษรัฐบาลพวกมึงคิดที่จะโกงนี่อยู่กันในคุกกูมีเสียงและก็แผดพวกที่กระจอกมึงก็คงมองกูแปลกกูไม่สนใจใครในความเป็นจริงกูก็เดินมากินแผลพวกมึงเอากับกันแหละเพราะในสังคมมันคนลากยามีแต่คนจริงมึงไม่ทราบว่าพวกเอาแต่โกงมึงไม่คงจะทราบว่าเพราะมึงคิดกันแต่โกงแล้วก็มีกันแต่โกงแล้วกูมากันจากสวรรค์พวกมึงลองมาฟังถึงที่กูทำกูไม่เคยจะสนใจกันแล้วพวกมึงคงจะไม่จำต้องกูฟรีสไตล์พวกมึงลองมาฟังกันเพื่อนอยู่ในคุกแล้วก็แบกกับความฝันแล้วก็มีแต่ความจริงแล้วไม่เคยจะไปผ่านกูยังฟรีสไตล์คำแล้วก็พ่นราพวกมึงลองมาทวนคำแล้วก็พ่นคำ2 year 2 year แต่เพลงสร้างกูอยู่มา2 year 2 year กูมีเมียคนเดียวแล้วกูไม่มี10 เมียพวกมึงลองเคลียร์แล้วกูแรปฟรีสไตล์แล้วก็พ่นคำพวกมึงลองมาฟังแล้วที่กูพ่นความพ่นมันกูไม่มีหรอกคำว่าพ่นควันฟรีสไตล์แล้วกูยังฟรีมันฟรี political prisoner มีความเป็นจริงพวกมึงลองก็มาดูกันเองแล้วความจริงกูก็พูดในเพลงแล้วกูไม่มีความคิดที่จะหวั่นและก็เก่งกูไม่สนใจมันจะคิดเป็นยังไงปล่อยให้ร้ายไหลแล้วก็พูดกันต่อไปพวกลงมาดูแล้วมันคิดกันยังไงกูยังฟอร์ฟรีตายแล้วกูฟรีกันต่อไปแล้วกูไม่สนแต่พวกกระจอกแล้วมาคิดดีๆแล้วมาคิดกันระบอบพวกมึงลองมาดูกันก่อนตอนกูพ่นกันแล้วพวกมึงดูกันก่อนแล้วก็อยู่ข้างในคุกอยู่สลัมแล้วไม่มีใครมาฟังแล้วมึงลองมาดูแล้วที่กูดูทวนคำว่าตอนกูฟรีสไตล์มึงลองมาทวนกันแล้วมึงลองฟังอีกคำว่ามันเป็นกันยังไงกูไม่เคยจะตดแล้วความเป็นจริงแล้วพวกกันต่อแล้วกูไม่เคยได้ที่จะฟังแล้วที่กูฟังแล้วที่จะคิดแล้วก็ต้องพูดมึงเถอะแล้วรู้มึงจะคิดแล้วถ้าพูดมึงจะคิดแล้วพูดมึงคิดกันเป็นสปินแล้วถ้าพูดมึงเถอะแล้วก็พูดมึงเถอะแล้วถ้าฟรีสไตล์แล้วพวกมึงเถอะตอนกูแรปแล้วพวกมึงอาจจะอ้วกกันเถอะตอนกูแรปแบ็คคำไหวแล้วมึงคิดกันยังไงแล้วก็เพื่อนมึงอยู่ในคุกเว้ยบางสิ่งมันต้องล้มแล้วก็ลุกเว้ยแล้วมันไม่ได้ง่ายเว้ยเหมือนเกมเนี้ยข้างในจะลำบากต้องมีแต่คนที่แม่งจรจัดแล้วพวกมึงก็ดูถูกกันแต่จัดอยู่ห่างเส้นถนนกันพวกมึงมาดูแล้วมึงมองมาดูป่ะพวกมึงในสนามแล้วไม่มีคนในสายตาแล้วมึงลองที่กูแรปแล้วก็ฟังกันหลายป่ะกูไม่สนใจพวกมึงคิดกันยังไงกูจะเปลี่ยนใจแล้วกูไม่เคยจะเปลี่ยนใจพวกที่เขาจอมึงก็มองเขามาฟังดูแล้วแต่พวกมึงจบมึงลองเขาแล้วมาฟังดูแล้วมึงคิดยังไงสับมึงลองมาฟังดูฟีแต่ท้ายคำสั่นแล้วมึงก็ลองดูกูไม่เคยจะสนใจแล้วแต่พวกมึงก็จองแล้วไม่มีผมเสียใจต้องมาพ่นคำนึกก็พ่นคำนึกก็พ่นกันจนแต่พวกมึงใจสั่นมึงลองมาด้านเดินกันกูไม่เคยจะสนใจความเป็นจริงแล้วพวกมึงจองดูกันดีๆเลยสั่นกูไม่เป็นระบอบแค่แต่พวกมึงแต่สั่นแล้วก็บอกแล้วก็ในกูมีแต่แรปกูไม่มีปืนสักกระบอกYeah Okay Let's go
Let's stand
All love
Hey
Yeah
เด็กขอไปเว้ย
All love to everyone This song has been the kid from slum
คือมึงมองว่ากูเป็นยังไงวะ
One Put your hands up One Two Three กูก็ตัวแทนจากเด็กข้างในสลัมกูก็ตัวแทนจากเด็กข้างในสลัมกูก็ตัวแทนจากเด็กข้างในสลัมมาที่พวกมึงดูถูกพวกกูเลวเลยยำกูก็ตัวแทนจากเด็กข้างในสลัมกูก็ตัวแทนจากเด็กข้างในสลัมกูก็ตัวแทนจากเด็กข้างในสลัมมาที่พวกมึงดูถูกพวกกูเลวเลยยำไรพอเป็นมนุษย์ฉลาดการจำแนกคนรวยกับผู้ล่าและส่วนเหยื่อก็คือคนจนและรวยกระจุกและจนกระจายนี่แหละสังคมให้คนรวยเขาเบียดผ่านแยกเห็นเด็กขายพวงมาลัยยกมาทั้งคลองเตยเอามาใส่ในกากก่อนเด็กมีคนยิงกันในซอกซอยเขาก็ตาหน้าว่าเราเป็นฆาตกรหรือแรงงานกรรมกรและหลังคาที่นอนสิก็เข้าไปถึงทั้งที่พวกเราคือราษฎรเขาเตยเราเปรียบเหมือนบ้านหลังใหญ่กูไม่ไปไหนตอนรัฐบาลให้บ้านหลังใหม่เขาจับคนหลักแสนในย้ายขึ้นไปบนคอนโด
คนที่อยู่ในเงินตาจะ
เอาไปไล่ราคาสิโนพูดไม่โอมันคงเป็นสัจธรรมเป็นเวรเป็นกรรมที่ประเทศเรามีผู้นำที่ยังระยำศิลปินยังโชว์ตังค์แต่เงินก้อนหนึ่งให้เด็กกินข้าวได้หลายวันแต่ว่ายังตาขยิบกันมีเงินเป็นตัวแปรก็เปลี่ยนข้างกับฉับพันและยิ่งกูสับล้างแล้วทิ้งอุดมการและยินดีกับเผด็จการภาษาลูกยังไม่เกิดก็มีนี่แล้วเป็นหลักล้านเฮีย
เฮ้ยยังไม่จบมึงฟังก่อนเด็ก
เด็กที่พบกันบอระบอที่ปอยอและเข้ามาคุมและพอข้าวคนมีคนเป็นมนุษย์ไม่ใช่สัตว์แต่ว่านายสั่งจึงทำตามไม่เหมือนนิทานที่กบเรื่องนายประชาชนอยู่ 5G ได้แค่เลือกอดกับเลือกตาย
เท่านั้นเอง
กูจะไม่ต้องแคร์กูเลยต้องโค้งใช้คนละแบบอยู่เหมือนมึงโฟงส่วนพวกหนูกูไม่อยากจะโค้งแบนเองกูไม่มีตัวกูทำไม่ร้อนใช้คนละลาไม่เลยของเก่ามองคนละลาไม่เท่าไม่ต่างของคนละลาที่ดีไม่ทำหมา 2022เป็นเดือนต้นภัยระดับ4ในขณะที่คนอดตายโว้โว้โว้ไอ้อ่านทุกทีมันชอบไม่รู้หลอนหลอกแค่สีเป็นเซอร์เป็นซักกี่เข็มมาช่วยให้หายโง่หลอกเป็นชุดไว้อะโดนเน่าชอบและคนจนน้ำรอแล้วตายตัวพวกมึงนั่งนับตังแล้วผลไม่โดนจากลากยาแล้วมึงก็ต้องตาเป็นมันและบริหารน้ำส้นมีในเรื่องพันนี้ถนัดจังฟังเราโพแล้วมึงถนัดแต่ยัดยายาจะหมดไปแล้วไหนของกลางที่จับมายัดเข้าหายัดไรมึงก็ยัดมาแต่เข้ามาใกล้กูจะเสิร์ฟตีนก็เบ้าตาไอ้เชี่ยรวยไอ้เชี่ยจ้าไอ้เชี่ยมวลแล้วควรตำรวจหรือว่าควรตำรวจถึงหัวมึงเช็ดแม่กูอยากจะเสิร์ฟลูกด่วนแล้วก็ใน191ผมไม่รับแจ้งเหตุด่วนปิดหูปิดตาดังๆนี่ยามึงมีเกินซอยไม่รู้ว่าใครไปปลูกมันไว้กูเห็นสิ่งมีเกลื่อนดอยเลยคนไร้บ้านทำได้แค่นอนที่เสือคอยไม่เคยมีข่าวในหนังสือพิมพ์หรือว่าเรื่องจริงผ่านจอแม้หลังจะได้รางวัลไม่มีที่เก็บจนตู้ตาแต่ยังไม่เห็นมีผู้อำนาจจะเข้ามาเปลี่ยนมันแบบฉากพรถนัดพูดถนัดทำสุดท้ายก็แดกได้ถนัดขจับดังและแบกการทุกออนสุคูลลิวิ่งวิถีชีวิตไม่ซ่อนและเชื่อเชื่อชีวิตเพลงมันไม่ใช่สนามเด็กเล่นและขยะสังคมทั้งในลิมบิชโอเค let's go เพลงต่อไปทุกคน yeah this song freestyle I want to talk about my friend in the prison yeah okay โทษทีภาษากูอ่านไม่ค่อยถนัดแล้วบางคนฟังกูแรปแล้วแม่งก็อาจจะหลับแล้วบางคนติดกับกูสัตว์ต้องเปิดก็เข็มกับพวกมึงลองฟังและกูโฟกันแบบว่าเกินพิกัดจินตนาภาพจินตนารามคิดข้างในสมองแล้วคุณก็ลองมาทวนตามบางคนก็ได้ยินที่เสียงโอ้แล้วก็ควรทางพวกคุณมาลองมาฟังคิดทำแล้วคุณก็คิดกันและทุกวันมันมีแต่เรื่องที่มลพิษขับฆ่ากันตายหาอยู่ข้างในสงครามที่ไม่เหมือนที่ตอนน้ำยาตอนสงกรานต์แล้วพวกคุณลองมาฟังแล้วก็ใช้วิจารณญาณแล้วคุณมาลองแต่คนคำแล้วลองมาคำคิดแต่ความคิดแล้วมันก็มีแต่คำว่าทางผิดและไม่มีทางที่กูจะเลือกทางผิดหรือทางถูกทางกูยังคงเดินไปฝันกูยังคงเดินอยู่แล้วคนข้างในคุกตื่นมาเช้าต้องรีบเดินรีบเพลินบางคนแม่งก็เครียดเกินแล้วเอาแต่เรื่องระบอบที่แม่งไม่เปลี่ยนกันหรอกเพราะรัฐธรรมนูญไม่แก้แล้วแม่งก็คงไม่เปลี่ยนกันหรอกข้างในสังคมแล้วแม่งก็คงต้องแย่ตลอดแต่คนจนนะแม่งต้องจนกันอยู่ตลอดแล้วกูก็อยากจะเปลี่ยนระบอบเดินออกไปจากตอกกูตะโกนไปก่อนแล้วกูไม่สนใจโอเคเอาละว่าแล้วกูไม่สนใจใครจริงความจริงแล้วกูต้องพ้นไปถึงแม้ต้องอยู่ไม่เพียงลำพังแล้วกูไม่สนใจใครกูยังคงโฟกัสอยู่ข้างในสลามนะโอเคแล้วกูไม่คิดที่จะแคร์แล้วพวกมึงเธอก็แล้วแต่พวกมึงอยากจะแลโอเคแล้วกูก็มีสลางแล้วกูก็พลแล้วพวกมึงได้แค่มลพิษหรือมันแรงถ้ามึงอยากที่จะคิดแล้วมันคิดกันทันทีพวกก็ตอบมันก็ดูกันทีๆตัวกูโฟไปกูไม่สนใจมันจะคิดกันยังไงกูก็ปล่อยคำที่กูไหวไปพูดทีๆแล้วก็ไหลใจพวกมึงอ่านลงไหลไงกูนั้นไม่ใช่แรปเปอร์แต่กูแรปเปอร์แล้วพวกมึงคิดกันยังไงแล้วก็ฟิกกันแต่กูไม่เคยจะทนหลอกแล้วกูเจอกันมากี่หมอพวกที่มันตอบมันก็คงจะไปทางแล้วก็พวกมึงอาจจะสนกันก่อนแล้วตอนกูฟรีกับกูไม่สนใจมันจะคิดกันยังไงกูก็ปล่อยมันครับพวกก็ทำไปกูไม่สนใจใครแล้วก็คิดกันยังไงแล้วก็อาจจะฟังกันไม่ออกเพราะกูแรปไทยแต่ความเป็นจริงภาษาอังกฤษกูพูดไม่ได้ไงเพราะการศึกษาเนี่ยแม่จะเชียร์และแม่ก็จะไล่สอนให้กูได้เรียนแต่ไม่สอนให้เคยให้กูนั้นใช้ไงแล้วกูไม่เดินไปถึงระบบแต่ถ้าไม่เข้าไปถึงระบบแล้วก็มาเรียนในเรื่องที่แย่มันก็กดหัวกูตลอดกูอยากจะเรียนแล้วกูเดินขึ้นไปมีงานที่เก่าประจำแต่มันก็มีแต่เรื่องที่แย่แล้วคุณก็คงไม่ฟังถ้าเกิดผมเล่าแล้วคุณก็คงจะฟังไหมเรื่องข้างในสังคมแล้วคุณอาจฟังว่าดูควายออกไปท้องติดพวกคุณอาจว่าดูร้ายพวกกูทำเพื่อเปลี่ยนประเทศสอนแล้วมึงจะดูไหมกูถามว่าประชาคมโลกยังสนใจไทยไหมอยากจะเปลี่ยนประเทศไทยแล้วแม่งยังไกลไหมกูถามจริงว่าทุกคนแม่งมันใจไหมเดินออกมาบนถนนแล้วกูถามว่าทุกคนมันใจไหมโอเคแล้วเพลงต่อไปคือเพลงสุดท้ายนะทุกคนเพลงต่อไปคือเพลงสุดท้ายนะจัดไปเลยครับพี่ชายเพลงนี้ผมอยากให้ทุกคนเปิดแฟลชขึ้นมานะ Everyone please open the flashlight for the freedom ขอลดแสงปิดแสงให้หน่อยได้ไหมครับผมเริ่มขอเพียงแค่กอดและเก็บเธอไว้ในใจไปก่อนจะฝากวอนขอดวงดาว แม้ยามลัทธิการเธออาจจะมองไม่เห็นจันทร์ดอกไม้อยู่ในกระถางแม้ตอนลุงสางไม่เจอตะวันหัวเข่ามีข้าวกระทองถึงแม้ต้องชนเด็กเป็นพันๆจะกอดจะเก็บเธอไว้ในใจไม่มือไม่อาจสัมผัสกันเธอมันสีสดที่เหลือมันบทที่ฉันมีเหมือนคุณชอนในเจกันทองที่แผ่กันสอนไปทั่วนาทีไม่มีแค่เกมกระดานกับไฟจังๆถ้าออกไม่มีได้โปรดลืมฉันไปก่อนที่รักได้โปรดดูแลตัวเองให้ดีจะอยู่จนเธอออกมาให้ดวงดาราเป็นสักขีพยานน้ำตาที่หยดลงดินนะไฟลุกขึ้นไปทั้งบางความรักไม่มีทางขวางกั้นแต่ที่คงไม่อาจขังอุดมการณ์ให้เธอรู้ว่าจะไม่รอคอยปลอบตำลมตำตอกเท่ารูตารางในห้องฉันมีต้นรถน้ำเป็นปลูกดินแต่ก็มีพิษจากธรรมชาติเป็นภาพที่วาดที่น้ำลาถ้าใครจะทราบไม่เพียงแค่มองกับข้ามน้ำตาที่เพิ่มก่อนและเก็บเธอไว้ในใจไปก่อนจะฝากวอนขอดวงดาวเปิดตาบนฟ้ารอคอยกันหน่อยเธอหน้าคนดีขอเพียงแค่กอดและเก็บเธอไว้ในใจไปก่อนจะฝากวอนขอดวงดาวเปิดตาบนฟ้ารอคอยกันหน่อยเธอหน้าคนดีเธอไปหาไม่ขอเธอไว้ไม่ห่างไปไหนจะกลับไปหาขอให้สัญญา Yeah, thank you everyone ขอบคุณทุกคนมากนะครับขอบคุณทุกคนมากนะครับในวันนี้ขอบคุณทุกคนมากครับ
Woo! Yeah! Woo, 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 woo. Woo, woo, woo. Thank you, 11 Finger. That was great. We really loved it. Thank you so much, 11 Finger. Thank you for energizing the room. Thank you for your artistic work that speaks so much to inequality, that speaks of democracy. Thank you, 11 Finger. And yeah, if you didn't like this, I'm sorry. If you also didn't like this, yeah, maybe it says something about your age gap. But if you liked it, like I did, it was wonderful. Thank you. And there's many ways to express protest and to protect civic space, and this is one of the ways. So thank you as well to Civic to bringing in all these forms of art, all these forms of protest, and reminding us that this is some of the ways to be inclusive. The Stand as My Witness campaign, we move on now. I did note yesterday, it's a campaign that we are running, calling attention to the plight of unfairly jailed human rights defenders around the world and providing a platform for all of us to show solidarity with those that are prosecuted as well as demanding justice. The campaign currently at the moment features 18 imprisoned human rights defenders. You will see some of them who are displayed behind me here. Today we are featuring human rights defender Anon Nampa. Anon is an imprisoned Thai democracy activist. He is imprisoned and faces multiple criminal charges for his pro-democracy work. His case is represented today by Akarashai Shimani Karakate, who is International Advocacy Lead of Thai Lawyers for Human Rights. Akarachi will come and speak for about 3 minutes to bring attention to the case of Anon. Thank you.
Merci.
You're welcome.
Hi everyone, my name is Akara Chai. I represent Thai Lawyers for Human Rights. A bit about our organization, we were founded in 2014 to provide legal aid to Thai people, protesters, who came out, took to the street to exercise their fundamental freedoms. Those are the people for whom we provide legal representation. But today, I don't want to talk about me or Tiawecha per se. I want to tell you a story about Arnon Nampa. In 2020, Thailand was swept by a mass youth-led pro-democracy movement. Young people, middle schoolers, high schoolers, university students took to the street to peacefully call for democratic reforms, to call for a new people-written constitution, to replace the one that was written by the military junta, to call for the reforms of the institution of the monarchy. That movement was met with criminalization and violent crackdowns. At the peak of those protests, rubber bullets were fired into the crowd of protesters, some striking children under the age of 18. High-pressure water cannons shot water laced with unknown chemicals at protesters. Crowd control police used batons and shields to beat up protesters. Arnon saw one of those violent crackdowns while he was at home. He quickly rushed to the site of one of those protests, trying to offer whatever assistance he could to his fellow brothers and sisters. Upon his arrival, a child saw him, quickly rushed towards him, took off his own protective helmet and gave it to Arnon Nampa, saying, "You are our protest leader. Your life is worth more than mine." Looking at the child, Arnon took the helmet and gave it back to him and said, "No, our lives are worth all the same." For those who have not heard of Arnon Nampa before, he's a Thai human rights lawyer, a prominent protest leader. In 2020, he's known for giving a Harry Potter-themed speech to speak about he who shall not be named in Thailand. Since then, he's spoken at many other public rallies. He questioned, for example, why the Thai constitution, already approved by the people in a referendum, was later amended by the government at the king's request. He talked about a law that transferred military units into the king's personal command. He questioned a law that transferred public assets into the king's personal ownership. He criticized the law that put people in jail simply for speaking truth to power. And for speaking those truth to power, he has spent at least 768 days in prison already. His so-called crime, lèse majesté. Under Section 112 of the Thai Criminal Code, whoever defames or insults a Thai king is liable for imprisonment for 3 to 15 years. 3 to 15. That's equivalent to the penalty of manslaughter under the Thai Criminal Code. Let me say that again. In Thailand, if you're found guilty of defaming or insulting the Thai king, you would be punished the same way as another person who kills another human being unintentionally. Arnon Nampa has already been prosecuted in 14 different lèse majesté cases. Thai courts have found him guilty of lèse majesté in 10 of those cases, sentencing him to more than 29 years in prison. By the end of 2025, it's likely that his total prison sentence will exceed 30 years, as judgments in the 4 remaining cases are delivered by the court. But despite his imprisonment, he continues to act as a human rights lawyer. He continues to be brought from prison to court in a brown prison uniform, ankles shackled, in order to defend other activists who, like him, have been charged with lèse majesté. He continues to walk around the courtroom barefoot to question witnesses. Imprisonment has not stopped Arnon Nampa from defending the rights and liberties of his fellow brothers and sisters. And interestingly, Arnon Nampa's story is a story of not just his own, but a story of almost 2,000 Thai people, including no fewer than 280 children under the age of 18 who have been charged or prosecuted under various repressive laws for exercising their fundamental freedoms. It's a story of a father of two young, beautiful children, one of whom learned the word court before the word dad. His youngest child would always call out to him every time he's driven past the Thai criminal court. It is a story of everyone who struggles for democracy, justice, and the right to speak truth to power without fear. Arnold once told me that we speak of courage many times, hundreds, if not thousands, but only when we stand face to face with fear, with darkness, that we begin to understand the difference between the word that is uttered from the mouth and one that is spoken from the heart, the different types of courage. I hope that as I stand here before you today, telling his story, his courage will inspire you the same way it has inspired me and the same way it has inspired countless of other people in my home country, Thailand. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Akarachi, as well as the international, the Thai Lawyers for Human Rights, who are representing Anon. So just a quick announcement from Stand As My Witness campaign that on the registration desk downstairs, there were some postcards with the human rights defenders that you could pick up. Some of you picked these up and went with them. Please return them, fill them in at the back, put in your solidarity message and bring them back at the desk. The postcards are not for you to keep. I know you want to. But yeah, at the end, they all get collected and they get delivered to prison, to where the activist is held, as a form also of letting him know that we are thinking about him, we are standing in solidarity with him. So if you haven't picked up a card, please consider picking up a card when you're going for your sessions, filling in and sending a message of solidarity to those who are not here with us and are in prisons. It is the last thing now before we go to our various sessions, which is the big panel of the day, which frames our discussions and our thinking and gives us questions to take to the next sessions. This is the session titled The Battle for Civic and Democratic Freedoms. Irene, you've got a big act to follow after 11 fingers with your panel. Yeah. So the panel is going to examine civic freedoms and restrictions and democratic regression across regions, including patterns emerging in established democracies. The panelists will discuss various legal and advocacy defense strategies and explore how international organizations can support local responses without creating additional risks or problems for them. They will address protection mechanisms for defenders facing persecution, forms of international solidarity most valued by democracy movements, and the role of UN mechanisms, how we experience it in safeguarding civic space, concluding with strategic priorities for defending democracy globally. The panel is moderated by Irene Petras, who is Africa Regional Director for the International Center for Not-for-Profit Law and also a board member of Civicus. There are 5 panelists. This panel runs for 60 minutes. Let us welcome the panel. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'm not 11 fingers, but I think we can get a little shout out for our panelists as they sit down. What I haven't told them yet is when I ask them questions, they must respond using rap. Yes. Okay. Okay. So it's my honor and privilege to moderate this session on day 2 of the ICSW, together with a fantastic panel here. After yesterday, we had a very fascinating discussion that revealed some of the rich history of Civicus and also of the civil society movement. And I had 3 reflections as we left yesterday. The first was, we have to, as civil society and broader movements, look at what we can learn from our struggles. The 3 S's, I'm calling it, the struggles. To learn from what worked and not to repeat what we've done before. We should celebrate our successes, or as Lisa said, we should sing. And I realized from the discussions yesterday, but also from what we've been hearing already this morning, civil society, social movements have got stamina and staying power. And I think that we're really going to need them as we go into this next phase of the democratic struggle. So looking at defending democracy and civic space, I just want to quickly introduce the panelists here. I'll start at my far right with Marco De Ponte. He's the HIVOS Chief Executive and has held former leadership positions at ActionAid and Amnesty International. If you want to read more about the panelists, like Telda, I will tell you to go and look at the Hoover app and you'll find everything there. Next, we're honored to have Gina Romero. She's the UN Special Rapporteur for the rights of freedom of peaceful assembly and association. Next, we have Patricia Lerner, Pat, Special Advisor to the Executive Director of Greenpeace International, a former Civicus board member, and one of the founding members of the VUCA Coalition. Next, we have someone who needs no introduction, Annabelle Cruz. You heard a lot about her yesterday. The founding director of the Communication and Development Institute in Uruguay and a former chair of the Civicus board. And last but not least, Yasir Khan. He's the editor-in-chief of Thomson Reuters Foundation. So thank you all for being here. I want us first to start with looking at the threats that we face. Threats to democracy, threats to civic space. But what I want is, I don't want us to admire the problem. We know the problems. So just a soundbite from each of you about some of the issues that confront us today. And I want to start with Gina. As the UN Special Rapporteur, you've got a global vantage point on restrictions to freedom of assembly and association. What kind of patterns are you seeing with civil society in different regions? And why do these concern you, and why are they concerning for all of us as we go forward?
Well, thanks. Hello, everybody. And I'm really pleased to be here with this just fantastic panel. About the restrictions of freedom of assembly and of association, I've been recording a list of trends that we are seeing in each region in most of the countries. And these trends are related with what I can call now a setting composed of 3 major issues and then some tactics that are being used to actually restrict rights. So the setting is characterized by 3 major things. One is the decline of democracy worldwide, marked by the growing of authoritarianism, an increase of armed conflicts and genocide and other expressions of violence. The crisis of the multilateralism, that is very key also to analyze, which is the role for the international community in actually getting ahead the crisis, and the change in the financial landscape and change of the priorities of the funding around our work. That is the funding civil society, stigmatizing civil society, but also the funding and stigmatizing the human rights bodies that defend, the international bodies that defend human rights. And then these 3 this setting of these major issues are being fueled by several tactics that governments and other actors are using to actually curtail rights. So one is the spread of hostile narratives against civil society, against activism, against the use of protest as a form of dissent, against journalism, and you name it, that sparks and justifies the criminalization, harassment, persecution, detention, violence, and in some cases killings of civil society leaders, human rights defenders, and journalists, and also are fueling raids, sanctions, and dissolutions of civil society organizations. That's the one of the big tactics. The second one that comes hand to hand with the first one is the adoption of restrictive laws. So we see foreign agent laws, we see ill-intended transparency and accountability laws, we see the changes on penal codes to actually increasing the charges that people to protest face just for the sake of protesting. And then this is actually restricting heavily the work of civil society, social movements, and so on. And then also the other tactic that also, this reinforms each of them reinforms each other, the securitization of the public discourse and the political agenda that actually goes hand to hand with the dissemination of anti-rights agendas that increases this fake idea on the trade-off between security and the guarantee of rights, which is actually not sure. And then that comes also hand to hand with the use of technology, especially surveillance, to curtail rights. I want to end by saying that all these tactics and trends actually are delegitimizing the exercise of the right, are creating a big chilling effect that is affecting deeply the possibility for new actors to come to the field to actually protect rights and act upon the general agendas, and is also costing a lot of lives and the integrity of many people. So that is in a nutshell.
Thank you, Gina. And you talked as one of the groups that are being affected by some of these trends, journalists. So I want to ask Yasir here. You've covered press freedom globally. And from your perspective, what is the top threat, you think, today that journalists and media workers face? And we're even seeing some of these attacks on expression in established democracies. Let us know a bit about that.
I'll take yours. I was actually going to mention that used to be a long time ago, threats against journalism and journalists used to happen over there in one of those countries where that we all knew the names of. But now it's happening in the countries that used to say that this is the kind of stuff that happens over there. It's happening in the United States. Did you know that last year in the US, no, not last year, this year in the US, there were 100 assaults on journalists across the country. None of them was prosecuted. So, that I broadly categorize threats against journalism. And before we even start categorizing, I think it's important to understand, because this is rarely part of the conversation, understanding journalism as a very necessary part of a functioning civil society and a functioning democracy. And I'll get into reasons as to why that might not necessarily be seen that way a bit later, but in our societies as well, there's I broadly categorize threats in 4 categories. The first one is physical, besides attacks and assaults and all of that. I mean, this is the stuff that you see on television. The second one is legal, obviously, because it's not just suing the newspaper or, shutting down a TV channel, but it's slaps or frivolous lawsuits, like so-and-so didn't pay their taxes, or, so-and-so is a sexual deviant. All sorts of charges to discredit not only the journalism, but also the journalist. The third being, digital, attacks, where it's not just cyber attacks and spyware. I myself, a few years ago, was Pegasused by a government whom I shall not name, but also doxing and slander and libel. And finally, fourth, it's, sorry, let me just mention my notes, economic. We are probably, at a time where the journalism industry is at its most precarious. Look at who's paying a living wage to full-time employed journalists. It's either state actors or it is big corporate conglomerates into whose hands more and more media outlets are being concentrated. Most of us are freelancers. And what message does that send to the people attacking journalism? It sends them the message that this is easy pickings, right? Because freelancers will work for whoever pays them. Some outlets offer protection, some don't. I remember many, many, many years ago, I was a freelancer and I was off to cover the war in Sri Lanka, and I was told, well, you're a freelancer, so we can't really pay for your hostile environment training. I actually had to get a grant to do that, and that training saved my life. But that is just a very, very, very tiny example. So yeah, you have your digital threats, you have your physical threats, legal, and especially economic threats, something that nobody talks about.
Great, thank you so much. Pat, I want to come to you now. Greenpeace is campaigning for the right to protest and free speech. Can you tell us a little bit about why this has become necessary, and what are the connections you see between attacks on environmental defenders and the broader assault on civic freedoms?
Thanks, Irene. Yesterday, Mandeep suggested that we're at a global inflection point. And in fact, we think we are at a defining moment, because around the world, a growing authoritarianism is weaponizing the legal system to silence environmental defenders, crush the wider movement, and reverse decades of progress on climate and justice. These are not isolated incidents. They're part of a coordinated playbook led by fossil fuel giants, billionaire oligarchs, and populist political actors who share one common aim: to extinguish dissent and retain their hold on power. Greenpeace is under attack, but this is not just about us. We were hit with a staggering US $660 million SLAP suit. Yassir mentioned SLAPs. These are strategic lawsuits against public participation. We have a jury verdict at this stage against Greenpeace in the US and Greenpeace International. And this marks a historic escalation of corporate retaliation. This is not simply about money. It's a calculated attempt to bankrupt dissent, roll back environmental progress, and send a chilling warning to NGOs: stay silent or be destroyed. This is part of a growing threat to the entire nonprofit ecosystem, where the cost of speaking out is rising by design. We continue to see the use of SLAPs and other intimidation tactics used as retaliation for speaking out against perceived environmental or social wrongs. So let me just talk briefly about assumptions, because it's always the assumptions that get you, and maybe these are wrong. But our assumptions are that more people live in an autocracy than liberal democracy. Autocrats are consistent and connected, and they plan for the long term. Big tech is increasingly providing the oligarchs the means. Protest is on the rise, but not universally successful. We assume things will get worse before they get better. More people actively rejecting autocracy and oligarchy is necessary to stop the slide, and broad and diverse alliances are possible. And so we think it's time to resist.
Right. Shannon, thank you for that. Well, we're going to get to that in the next round, but I want to come to Annabelle now. You know, we've heard a lot about, you know, the journalists are being attacked, the environmental defenders are being attacked. From everywhere we see constrictions. Tell us a little bit about what's happening in Latin America. What's new about the tactics that are being deployed against civil society in your region?
Thank you, Irene. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for the invitation. Thank you, Mandeep. Thank you, Civicus. It feels so good to be home. And these global trends that were mentioned by Pat, by Gina, by you two, all of them are present in Latin America in different degrees and at different moments. According to the most recent data of the Civicus Monitor, the top 5 violations of civic rights in Latin America are attacks on journalists, killing of human rights defenders, disruption of protest, detention of protesters, and threats to journalists. So let me single out one of these 5, and which is killing of human rights defenders. According to Frontline Defenders, 80% of human rights defenders killed around the world, 80% were killed in Latin America. So this is a deplorable first place that my region bears with. And one of the countries, Colombia, is the most lethal country for human rights defenders, with almost 200 killed only in 1 year. So this is a new trend, and this is a very, very dangerous trend, because who perpetrates these crimes? At least 1/3 goes out unknown and with impunity, but more than half are perpetrated by non-state actors, mainly corporations, land mining corporations, and narco-traffic. So we are really facing a very, very difficult crisis. And the other trend that I wanted also to mention, to stress, that you mentioned, Gina, is the proliferation of laws against NGOs. At least in 6 countries in the last 2 years, this kind of laws were approved: Paraguay, Peru, El Salvador. And that's also a trend that we are facing, and we have to be resilient and creative sometimes to continue our fight. Thank you.
Thank you. You're talking about these legal measures now, so I want to turn to Marco. You're documenting these enabling environment restrictions, and also in the global north, not just everywhere else. How are these restrictions in policy and legislation in northern countries being replicated or influencing those that we're seeing in the global south?
Thank you everyone for having me here. Okay, so first, my comments, I think it's not coming directly on this question from the experience of Hivos that is primarily working in the global south, but maybe as an active citizen that lives in the Netherlands, Italian citizen and all that. Some facts have already been mentioned by colleagues. If you take the Civicus Monitor, countries like UK, US, Germany have been downgraded. So I think it's not worth repeating facts that have been documented widely. The human rights organizations are documenting that. But maybe there's a space for a few reflections, right? I think there is one question: is global authoritarianism coming home, or is it generated in the north or the west? I think it's a bit of both, right? If you think of authoritarianism and threats to human rights defenders coming into Europe, it's worth mentioning, for example, that about 100 individuals have been targeted in the EU, foreign citizens targeted in EU in the past few years, and about 1/5 of these are journalists by foreign countries, right? So basically, human rights violations of citizens living in the EU are possible now, when we thought that it wouldn't be possible for other authoritarian regimes to target people within the European Union. Journalists, slap suits, everything has been mentioned. Intimidations, oftentimes, like in Latin America, is now happening even within Europe by unknown parties. In my own Italy, the car of very notorious, very famous journalists have been blown up just last week. And who is a message coming? Is that message coming from? People don't really know, but can suspect the origin of those intimidations. What is also interesting is, I think, to reflect in this, how to say, how the threats and the practices get transferred from one country to the other. I think Europe is particularly interesting because, as we are seeing, it is from Europe that support to human rights defenders in the rest of the world has come from many years, but now from Europe and the United States, overseas development aid has been cut tremendously, 60 billion euros in the next 5 years. It's calculated to be the cut of support that would come from Europe to defenders across the rest of the world. The country where I live, the Netherlands, cut 2.4 billion euros for the next 5 years. So there is a link between what's happening in Europe and what's happening in the rest of the world. And then I think it is very, very frustrating to see how the political leadership is relentlessly dismissing the role of civil society in Europe, including when civil society is not just working on domestic issues, but is working on issues such as, for example, migration. People that are supporting or monitoring what's happening, for example, in the Mediterranean are being accused of supporting illegal immigration that is happening every day, and it has an impact also on the perception that the general public has of organized civil society. We were once the heroes, now we are, the bad guys. So the narrative that is being played in Europe by political leadership is affecting everyone. There is a theory of policy diffusion or policy spread that has been also articulated in an academic way and is supported by quantitative research. Basically, it is possible to it is very often happening that a policy design in one place is emulated by another country, and yes, sorry, I wasn't looking at you. So emulation, coercion, there's very different ways in which policy perspective gets spread to other countries. So the link between Europe and the rest of the world is becoming more and more evident.
And Marco, you can just hold on to the mic. Because you are part of a program, EUC, which takes an early warning approach to some of these issues and anticipates some of the restrictions. So can you just talk a little bit about that work, how it works in practice?
Yeah. Okay, so C stands for System for Enabling Environment. This is a large program funded by the European Union, which might be even problematic if you want to look at it by zooming out. But like you say, it's an experiment. I don't want to spend time here saying that this is better than other programs, but basically policy alerts, early warning mechanism, resources are poured into organizing civil society across 86 countries in the Global South. The idea is that by monitoring in advance what is happening, we would be able to react in a more adaptive and fast way. You know, it's always arguable whether you want local civil society to do the monitoring or you want parties coming from outside a particular country to do the research. So, for example, Amnesty for a long time did apply this own country rule. They wouldn't do research led by locals. But what we're trying to do through this program is to engage individual organization and network country by country so that they can report early what is the modifications to the legal framework and you know, whether the environment is becoming more or less enabling. We do produce focus reports annually. We do also have snapshot reports, and the idea is that with that information you can react faster. Based on the same type of information that we produce, there is another part of the project that releases money into reaction, so that in a way there is a link between, direct link between research and the reaction. And we support civil society, taking into account you know, having a common methodologies for analysis and releasing money. So we'll see, this will work until 2029, at least we'll see whether this is working better or less than other mechanisms. It shouldn't be duplicating anything that already exists, but solidarity is promoted across countries and within countries through early engagement. Yeah.
And I like that. Where I come from in Southern Africa, we say local is lekker. It's good to have locals who know the context and are able to feed in. Maybe we may want to expand the number of countries to move a bit further north as well in future. But Pat, I want to move to you. You mentioned to great acclaim that it's time to resist and that we have to protect the right to protest. What are the strategies that Greenpeace is using and the broader environmental movement? Can you talk a bit about that and the roles that coalitions are playing, especially around, you know, protection against slaps, which was also been mentioned?
Thanks, Irene. So we're pushing back. The energy transfer SLAP suit in the US is what we refer to as the canary in the coal mine for movements in the US and well beyond. Energy Transfer is a fossil fuel pipeline company behind the Dakota Access Pipeline. And they allege that Greenpeace in the US and Greenpeace International helped, quote, orchestrate, unquote, the indigenous-led resistance at Standing Rock, an accusation dismissed by a federal court in 2019 and then resurrected in a chilling SLAP suit in a North Dakota state court. The North Dakota jury ruled against the Greenpeace defendants in March 2025, despite a lack of evidence, fundamental flaws in Energy Transfer's legal arguments, and gross violations of due process. So Greenpeace in the US and Greenpeace International will appeal in the US courts. Simultaneously, however, Greenpeace International is mounting the first ever case under Article 17 of the European Union's new anti-SLAP directive, suing Energy Transfer in the Netherlands. So we have a dual defensive and offensive legal strategy supercharged by a global campaign and targeted strategic communications, because we think this is important in order to resist and try to win against this corporate legal bullying. So we're going to focus our campaigning power on A, defending our movement in court, which means strategic litigation to protect against slaps, improve legal safeguards for nonprofits under threat globally. This isn't just a legal fight, though. It's a battle of strategic communications. The billionaires behind these attacks want to control the public story. So we must tell a different one. We must protect the truth. We need to scale up our global message that we will not be silenced. This includes mass engagement campaigns to expose corporate bullies and billionaire climate deniers, high-impact storytelling and visibility actions across global media, and coalition work with indigenous movements, free speech defenders, and climate justice allies. SLAP suits aim to distract and intimidate the climate movement. They want us to scale back the ambition of our core mission to drive action on the climate emergency and to protect the world's oceans and forests. The urgency of the environmental crises means we must do the opposite. We need to send a clear signal. Environmental advocacy is not a crime. It's a cornerstone of a healthy democracy, and it's needed more now than ever.
Great. Thank you so much. Yes, yeah. You've talked about the 4 different types of threats. I want to go now to some of your legal and advocacy responses that you've taken to protect journalists. Could you talk a little about that?
Sorry. Turn the mic off because, yeah. Look, protection is about more than bodyguards and safe houses. And this is where legal protection comes in, right? In terms of legal defense, here's what's worked in various instances. Courts upholding shield laws to protect confidential sources and unpublished material, because that's one of the first things a court challenge to a journalist will go after, is tell us who your sources are. Second, anti-SLAP laws and rulings, which are few and far between, but when they happen, they do tend to be effective, where a judge gets increasingly frustrated with the frivolousness of a court case and throws it out because it's so obvious. Pro bono or affordable legal aid, especially for defamation suits, arbitrary arrests and government subpoenas, those have worked. Legal hotlines and rapid response legal community teams have worked. But more than anything, what I like to call is, preparation is protection, right? And many, many journalists have little to no legal literacy. And we are seeing that more and more of them have to remedy that. And understanding your rights, how to handle subpoenas, search warrants, but more than anything, to make your journalism as bulletproof as possible. And that means accuracy. That means verifying your sources. And that means ethical reporting as opposed to extractive. What that does is 2 things. Number one, it happened recently where we covered human trafficking through employment agencies in India. And we also knew through our reporting that many of these employment agencies were linked to very big, powerful companies. And they, as soon as our stories went out, there came the threatening letters, and we were prepared for it because we'd done our background research. But the reason why we weren't scared, and our journalists weren't scared, and our freelancer in the field who'd done the reporting wasn't scared, was that our reporting was ironclad. We kept all the receipts. we knew that our story was prosecution ready, and that if we were ever to be in court, I see I have a minute left, that we would, and if it was a fair system, we would withstand it. There are other ways of protection, but I would say for journalists, besides the legal protection frameworks on the legal side, within journalism and within newsrooms, legal literacy should be top priority so that we are prepared before things happen.
Thank you. Annabelle, what's civil society doing in Latin America and globally to respond?
Well, civil society organizations in Latin America are doing many things, are working tirelessly, but it's not enough. And let me take it depart from the legal aspects I mentioned in my first intervention, because my concern is that all this hostile narrative against NGO is becoming law. It's becoming a normative. If we read the, what is it called? It's called Statements of Reasons. No? Of all these laws approved in Paraguay, recently in Ecuador, in Venezuela, in Peru, they talk about civil society being unaccountable, civil society being used to money laundering, civil society being non-transparent, and that's why civil society organizations have to be controlled, have to be restricted, and access to funding for this organization has also to be restricted. The so-called foreign agent laws are now a reality in Latin America, in at least 2 or 3 countries. So civil society organizations in my region are doing many things in terms of strategic litigation, documentation of violations, legal aid, alliances and networks, advocating for, on behalf of the right of civil society, and protecting human rights defenders. Just to mention, I don't know if he is here, the Argentinian organization CELS. I don't know if Manuel is here. If he's not here, he is in Bangkok. I saw him yesterday. Well, his organization does a real wonderful work with few resources and helping many victims and of restriction of rights in Latin America. A recent regional initiative for protecting human rights defenders has been launched to cover at least 8 countries in South America, and has the support of international cooperation and local and national government of Uruguay. And we hope that it's a bit of grano de arena that can help in this very complex situation. Thank you.
Gina, I want to come to you now. You've heard a lot about the different responses. Of course, a lot of these responses take resources. Legal defense, protection, strategic litigation, all of that kind of thing. But we've also heard that there's a lot of local action. So how can funders and how can international organizations come in to support and not to supplant the local action that is happening?
Yes, thanks. I need to start by saying that the report that I presented to the General Assembly like a couple of weeks ago was precisely about that. So what I did was a report on which were the impacts on this change of the international aid architecture, that it doesn't start with Mr. Trump's decision, but it actually just deepened, something that started some years ago with the decisions of several of the major donors, including the European donors and the EU, to actually reduce the number of funding that is available for civil society and other development and pro-democracy actions. And then the report just outlines the different trends and how this is affecting very specific agendas, because then it affects society, but precisely because of the needs and the depth of the crisis in several agendas. Those agendas are heavily impacted. So the environmental agenda one, the gender equality is the other one. All those agendas related to anti-corruption and the rule of law and democracy itself are heavily impacted, and the peace building and peace actions are also the ones, and all the inclusion of vulnerable groups and so on. So those are the agendas that are more impacted. And then at the end of the report, and you can see it online, I try to actually just outline some principles to try to take advantage of this crisis, to set like the path of doing a more sustainable aid system. And what I'm saying there is that, of course, we need more funding, but then we need more funding in a different way. And then these principles are just outlining the need to equalize power and decolonize cooperation. And then just to try to actually put more funding by direct access to national and local actors, including the access of funding to associations and organizations that are not registered, and this also include the social movements. So yesterday I was having a conversation with somebody that was telling, how do we feel? How is possible to bring some money to the social movements, for example, Gen Z movements, that actually they don't have like a formal structure. So how do you do that? And this is something that we still need to try to figure out all together. The other one is just to institutionalize meaningful participation. So the idea when we are trying to make decisions about several groups, these groups need to be sitting in the table, and this works both for multilateral scenarios, but also for donors. Just the repealing, and then just do very concrete exercise to actually repeal or restrict the adoption of the foreign agent type of laws or other internal laws, apply a human rights-based approach to the different possibilities also to the use of funding or the misuse of funding that in some cases are actually increasing funding for security and securitization and reducing funding for other issues, and then just to try to bring up front a different analysis on security, because security is not only the guns, and security is also related with many other things that are not there and are being forgotten. And then also prioritizing the flexible multi-year funding and long-term social impact. But then all this is not only in the hands of the funders, it also needs on how are we going to support the possibility to diversify and identify other actors. And I'll close with, for example, the need to go more in work into the pro bono companies. For example, for the legal aid, I've seen how the pro bono different legal firms have actually been stepping in to support some actors in the defense. I know that there are some legal and ethical discussions that we need to do around that, but that is something that is very useful in the moment in which several organizations, human rights defenders and journalists need legal protection. On the other side, what is the role also to the academia, especially in some moments in which I know that in the US, the academia is heavily curtailed also, but in other countries, the academia is still fueling fundings from other sectors that can actually be related to the work that civil society is doing, not to replace the work of civil society, but actually to help and support the platforms that civil society need to use, and then the academia could be another actor. So this is just a final message that's saying that we need to keep together, to stick together around civil society and movement, but also open up the view of who else can actually support this access to funding and then sustainability of movements and organizations. Sorry, it took a long.
Well, and if anyone wants to know more, you can go and read Gina's report, and the recommendations offer some useful tools for thinking about alternative ways to finance some of these protective mechanisms. Annabelle and Yasir, for both of you, I want to ask you, what does holistic protection look like? Perhaps, Annabelle, we can start with you and then come to Yasir.
Why not? Well, I cannot agree more with what you said. Protection is not a safe house and bodyguards. And there are different levels of needed protection, and those include an overall enabling democratic environment. So that's all these norms and all the work that Gina and other rapporteurs do at the United Nations. That's one level. The other level is to protect civil society and civil society as a sector and as legitimate actors in these processes. Then comes the protection to organizations, because we need strong organizations and accountable organizations and with resources in order to play their role. And of course, then the level of individual protection, and that there comes the protection to human rights defenders. So a holistic protection is what we think it's the necessary thing to do. A holistic protection includes advocacy, includes medical assistance, includes legal aid, includes psychosocial support, includes capacity building, and sometimes it might include temporary relocation. And this new initiative in Latin America is trying to cover all these needed levels of protection and this holistic approach. And we think it's one example of civil society trying to fulfill this mandate as our own responsibility in the protection ecosystem.
Look, protection is about creating support systems that address, I'm speaking for journalists, that address a journalist's risk environment, right? We spoke about legal support, which is critical, both pro bono or affordable and rapid response or long-term. We spoke about legal literacy and working on as societies, working on not only robust legislation, but also its enforcement. Mental health care. I can't even, that we can do a whole session on mental health care. Many of us, both human rights defenders, but also, journalists, face trauma from covering all sorts of things. And trusted peer networks, access to therapists, trained in trauma, and cultural competence. I've seen instances where, cultural competence was completely out of the equation and it did more harm than good. But, nothing protects better than consequences, seriously. And accountability mechanisms matter, right? So when attacks on journalists or human rights offenders go unpunished, for example, 85% of killings of journalists remain unresolved globally, right? And that is some kind of record, because imagine 85% of the murders in your country went unresolved. Imagine what that would do to your society, what that would do to law and order. But 85% of journalist murders go unresolved, right? And it perpetuates a cycle of impunity. This year we saw targeted assassinations where you would announce who you're going to kill, you would kill them, and then you would go and you put it on video, and then you would go, yeah, we killed them. And there are no consequences. And international advocacy, but also international consequences matter, right? And that that comes from having structures in place to put that kind of pressure on governments and on organizations that are carrying out these acts. And, sanctions, I don't know. I mean, there's a whole range of consequences, but currently we live in a consequence-free zone when it comes to, harm perpetuated against journalists as well as human rights defenders. And we can't talk about holistic, protections without talking about consequences.
Yeah. Marco, I want to come to you. The EUC, again, provides 6 types of funding to enhance civil society resilience. Can you talk a little bit about that and why you think that flexible model works?
Yeah, I would like to simplify this by saying that the flexible support mechanism, which does some of the things that were articulated now, so basically supporting human rights defenders in multiple ways, not just in the emergency, but also to strengthen civil society, is very deeply interlinked with the monitoring work that we do through another pillar of the project. So the ability of, maintaining a continuity between the work that needs to be done before and after the incidents, in a way, is crucial. I think also that calls us to reflect, because that's one other expertise that we bring to the table, to reflect between the linkages of protection that is happening online and offline. Yesterday, The Guardian, I don't know if you saw that, published, actually it was a short video, but information about how the Gen Z organized in countries like Kenya, Morocco, Nepal, and they basically use the gaming application called Discord, right? But how they use that? They use that to gather people to convene in physical spaces. They would say, okay, meet in square X or in place Y, right? So that link is always something that we need to keep in mind, and that is also where our funding that can be disbursed strategically, because in some cases, for example, technology is not available to continue to enable the continued operation of human rights defenders like human rights lawyers, journalists, and all that in countries where, for example, social media platforms are shut down or the whole internet is shut down. In countries that I wouldn't be able to mention now, we are doing precisely that. We are supporting civil society in their operational continuity in times where institutions are trying to silence them, even through controlling the technology. More generally, I think that it is important for civil society to be strengthened, not just at the time of emergency, but to build a common narrative, a common agenda for change. Because if you look at youth, for example, they're often protesting, but they really struggle to come with a very structured proposal for alternative, but maybe this we can address in the last round of comments.
Okay. Pat, you talk about battle of strategic communications. How can we effectively protect the truth and shift the narrative?
How can we?
Effectively protect the truth and shift the narrative.
Yeah. No, I don't think in the last 3 minutes as people are walking out of the room, I'm going to do an effective job on that. So instead, I'm going to talk about solidarity because I think that's key here. And when we were thinking of founding the VUCA Coalition for Action on Civic Space, which took, I think, 3 years. So I'm looking at Mandeep, like from 2014 to 2017. We borrowed the mantra of NATO, an attack on one is an attack on all. And that's the common mantra among coalitions working to defend against slaps and other intimidations. And there are groups in Europe. There's the Coalition Against Slaps in Europe case, which is doing very effective work. In the US, there's Protect My Protest, and there is a group in Africa, Coalition Against Slaps in Africa, CASA, that's just getting started on that. I'd be very interested if there's similar coalitions in Asia and Latin America. I'm not familiar with them, or in the Middle East. But in Indonesia last month, for the first time, a court labeled a case brought by a palm oil company a slap, upheld the need for public participation and scientific work, and recognized that the lawsuit was meant to intimidate, so the case did not move forward. So that gives hope. So hope and solidarity. And we need to amplify the work of those who are most effective and raise awareness among audiences along the lines that we heard this morning. I mean, the hope that we heard from those who are courageous on the front lines, the Stand As My Witness, and those, 11 fingers. It's the courage and hope, and that's what we need to get through this challenging time, as well as raising awareness among audiences who have the power to shift the political narrative, as well as political leaders, media, and financial institutions, and within the human rights framework, connecting the dots between the repression of activists and the right to protest with how fundamental rights are being stripped away at an alarming rate. And so this is why we think it's time to resist, and we must rise together.
And rise together. Gina, I'm going to turn to you last. We're running low on time, but I wanted you just to kind of give us some hope. You've engaged so many countries, so many civil society groups and human rights defenders and others. What is giving you hope in this moment?
Well, I can mention two things. One is this type of assemblies. I mean, that Civicus and ACN and the other colleagues were able to actually set these mega events in the context of such a complex crisis. It gives me a lot of hope, because at the end what it shows is that when civil society, when activists and human rights defenders faced challenges, they don't just jump out of the ship and then just fly away. They actually stick together, and then all this possibility to actually harness all the knowledge that you guys have been able to collect in these days, it gives me a lot of hope, because there is that you can see the resilience, you can see the bravery, you can see also the weight of all this fight, but also if we do it together, that weight will reduce, and then we can be more effective. So this is one. And second, the youth and the Gen Z movement. I mean, I went in April to Serbia, and I met such an amazing group of different type of youth that actually were so convinced in the importance of their action, even if they actually didn't have the possibility to come up with a specific changing agenda. When they take the streets, when they put themselves at the forefront of the defense of rights or fight against corruption, like here in Asia, and so on and so forth, that is actually giving us a lot of strength to understand that we need to be there for them. We need to be there to strengthen the possibilities, but then also we need to be there to take our own responsibility, because they do their part. I mean, but then they cannot be the ones who do the changes. The changes need to be done by many others. So civil society and youth are my main source of hope.
So thank you, Gina. I think that's the best way to end, with that bit of hope there. Can't say it any better myself. We've had a wonderful conversation. Please thank all the panelists. And we look forward the next 2 days to going a bit deeper into some of these issues and looking at how we can work together to find solutions. So thank you very much, and I will hand over to Telda before she kills me.
Okay, thank you everybody for coming to the main plenary of day 2. Please remember to keep using the hashtag ICSW 2025. The sessions begin now at 11, and see you tomorrow in the main plenary for day 3.
Quisieras, pero es una bandolera.